So this hockey season, 2018-2019, the National Hockey League was kind of interesting. It was up and down for the Blackhawks, like really up and down. Well, it started down a lot, and then went up and down, and the definition of a roller coaster ride, pretty much. And the Vegas Golden Knights were coming off of their Stanley Cup appearance, winning the Western Conference for the first time in team history because it was their first year in team history to be a hockey team. And they kind of stumbled at the beginning and then kind of made their way back into the playoff picture. And it was an okay season, so we'll go over some of those later on. But I wanted to talk about especially the Stanley Cup playoffs, how this postseason playoffs was crazy. It was crazier than last year, and probably crazier than any basketball postseason this past decade. So, where do we start? None of the division winners this year moved on from the first round. Calgary Flames lost in 5 to Colorado. The Nashville Predators lost to Dallas, I think in 6. Who was it? Washington Capitals lost in 7 to a bunch of jerks from Carolina, the Carolina Hurricanes. And the biggest story to start off the postseason was the Tampa Bay Lightning, who had a record-tying 62 wins in a season, which tied the, I think it was 95-96 Detroit Red Wings record, lost in the first round to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, the Blue Jackets had a very interesting road to the playoffs, where they kind of were one of the winners from the trade deadline in February. I remember I did a live stream about the trade deadline back in February, how them and the Vegas came out as the winners of the fire yard sale that the Ottawa Senators were having. Ottawa is rebuilding right now, so they're just selling everyone off, especially Duchesne, and they got a few other guys to Columbus for a really good price. And Columbus was going to make a really good playoff push, it looked like. Then it took until the last game of the regular season into a shootout for the Blue Jackets to get into the playoffs, which was like just getting in barely. And then they go on to sweep the top-ranked Tampa Bay Lightning, who was supposed to win the whole thing finally. Tampa Bay, is kind of almost like the new Capitals, where like they, keep getting so far and they just can't win the whole thing. Or like the Dodgers, I guess you could say, they keep winning so much in the postseason, but they can't win the whole thing. So kind of funny. Also, it was the Blue Jackets' first time winning a playoff series, which was really cool for them. And then they lost to Boston in the next round. But yeah, none of the division winners went on to the second round. Crazier things had happened. Somehow the Sharks moved on, and from Vegas, unfortunate that that Vegas blew a 3-1 lead. It sucks, but the Sharks just got focused. That's what the whole thing was. The first 4 games, the Sharks spent so much time in the penalty box, and I don't want to hear like, oh, the Sharks are just a better team. It's like, well, yeah, but towards the end of the season, they were really dipping, and Vegas could have passed them in the point standing. So I don't want to hear so much that like, oh, they're a great team. It's just that, especially in the first round, first 4 games, they had no focus whatsoever into the playoffs. And that's why Vegas was up so much. That's why they were winning. They took advantage of all those power play opportunities against the Sharks. And, then the Sharks focused, and they won the series in 7. Really great series, really. Just it heightens the rivalry more, especially hearing from the hockey guy, the guy YouTube channel. He said that the Sharks and Vegas fans were just bloodbathing it between each other. So moving on. So the Sharks went on to the Western Conference Finals and couldn't get it finished, even with the refs on their side. Which, by the way, Major League Cats, I know I never responded to your video that you had to make, you were forced to make, but that hand pass should have been reviewed. That hand pass directly affected the outcome of a playoff game, especially in a conference final game in overtime. If it happened in like the second period, 15 minutes in, I wouldn't really care. You'd be like, well, bad shot, bad play, whatever. Tough luck, tough bounce. But if it was happening in overtime, you have to review that shit. I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, I'm not a Blues fan. I hate the Blues. A Blackhawks fan, but I thought that the Blues got screwed over by the refs from that play. So I don't know what you're smoking, but clearly you're not thinking straight. So hopefully next season you can think straight as a new hockey fan. But it was kind of unfortunate to see Joe Thornton not move on to the Stanley Cup Finals, and maybe he could have won it. It would have been a really good series between Boston and St. Louis, Boston and San Jose for a Stanley Cup Final matchup. But alas, San Jose just couldn't make it. Wow, it was the only other team in this decade to make 4 Western Conference Finals appearances, the Blackhawks, and they were 3-for-1 in those appearances. And the Sharks are 1-for-3. Great job. But to the actual Stanley Cup Finals, really, really cool for the St. Louis Blues to go from the worst team in the league, January 2nd, dead last. They had a coaching change. They pulled up this rookie goalie who was 4th on their depth chart, who started in minor league hockey. This guy, Jordan Binnington. And all of a sudden they come roaring back. They had a 10-game win streak. I think it got up to 12 wins, at one point in January and February before the All-Star break. And then they go on to be 1 game away from winning their division, which kind of worked out because all the division winners lost. And they go on to win the whole damn thing. I mean, you've heard of worst to first. The Red Sox in 2012, worst team in baseball. Next season, they win the whole thing in the World Series. 2018, Virginia, the men's basketball team, as the number 1 seed, loses to the 16th seed, UMBC. And then the next year, they win the whole tournament. It's pretty cool to do it, after a season, but to do it in the same season. When was the last time you heard that happen? Probably never. So you got to give a lot of props, hats off to the Blues to do that. Game 7 was really huge. I was touting it to be the biggest Game 7 probably in the Stanley Cup Finals history, maybe top 5 at least. It was so well matched up, especially between Tuukka Rask and Binnington. And game started really intense, and Bruins were really at Binnington. It just Blues couldn't get to Rask at all, and Binnington just was stopping everything. And Blues scored on a 1 shot in about 10 minutes to go in the first period, and then all of a sudden, if you had to blame one person for the loss, or one starting person to blame, it'd be Marchand, number 63 for the Bruins, kind of a dirty player, a rat he's called, especially when last year in the postseason he was called by the players' office. Brad, during the handshake line, can you stop licking people? That'd be great. Thanks. It was last 10 seconds of the period in the first. He tries to check a guy, one of the Blues players, who has the puck, and then he goes to the bench to finish his shift and to do a substitute change. 10 seconds left, man. You're 31. You should know to finish the period. You should be aware that there's 10 seconds left in the period, and because he didn't finish his defensive assignment. I think it was Ryan O'Reilly that scored the second goal of the period of the game, and from there it just seemed insurmountable to come back from. If it was 1-0, it would have been a little bit easier. But since it was 2-0 at the end of the first, with that goal coming in at the last 10 seconds, the mentality of the Bruins just, it's gone. And after that, just a boring game, to be honest. There was only one penalty, and it was only because one of the Blues players shot the puck out of the rink. And that was it. The Bruins kept touting themselves as, the best team for power play. And didn't happen for them. So, interesting game otherwise. Pretty cool to see the Blues win their first Stanley Cup in their 52-year history. And Ryan O'Reilly got the Conn Smythe Trophy, the MVP trophy for the whole playoffs, not just the final, like for the Bill Russell Trophy when they win for the finals MVP, but for like the whole postseason. Pretty cool for Ryan O'Reilly, but he's not the first Blues player to win it. Glenn Hall back in '68, when the St. Louis Blues were the first expansion team to go to a Stanley Cup final. I say that with air quotes because '67 they did a whole expansion from the original 6 teams: New York, Chicago, Boston, Montreal, Detroit, and Toronto. They added 6 new teams: Pittsburgh, Philly, Minneapolis, LA, St. Louis, and Oakland. If Major League... yeah, and then, of course, someone from the expansion team had to go on to the Stanley Cup Finals. But Glenn Hall, the first Blues player to get a Conn Smythe Trophy. Pretty interesting season. Major League Cats joined in on the party, and kind of interesting his take. Glad he could recognize that this guy Connor McDavid is a good hockey player that everyone else has known for a long time now, and has known that he is the new Carey Price of the league, suffering as a top-notch elite player, but dealing with a kind of garbage team and franchise front office. Very interesting how Major League Cats developed a hate for Zdeno Chara, the giant on the ice, who played for Boston, the captain. He's 6'9" off of skates and about 7'1" on skates. When he got hit with a puck in the face, Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals, Major League Cats was like, oh, so glad that, the little guy stood up and got to beat up Chara. Just like, everyone is smaller than Chara, so everyone is a little guy. So great flawed logic right there, Major League Cats. All because you thought that Evander Kane is such a great hockey player, and because he decided to pick a fight, be his normal hot-headed self, being a liability for the Sharks, picked a fight with Chara, and Evander Kane's got his butt beat up because you don't really fight Chara. I mean, you have to sign like a last will and testimony knowing that you're probably going to go fight Chara, just in case. So, yeah, glad you could also see that that Joe Thornton being suspended for 1 game was unfair because of his hit to Nosek in the head. I think it was in Game 4 of the first round. And player safety guys made the office of the player safety made the call and said, yeah, that was a headshot. And I'm not saying Joe Thornton is a dirty player. It was just a dirty play. Again, going back to when I said before that the Sharks were unfocused in the first few games of the first round, and they're very physical. They were in the penalty box so much, and that's why they weren't winning games as much. They were spending the whole time in the penalty box. So, I don't know why you think Thornton is like the Tom Brady now of the league, I guess. And no, don't make that comparison. I mean, can the Sharks survive without Thornton for a game? Yeah, they did. Is he the biggest asset? I don't know. Probably not. But he's an important role player for them. But don't exaggerate it. I mean, he's old. He's probably going to be retiring at the end of this season. in the off season, which is unfortunate. But hopefully, he can make one more run at the Cup. But yeah, glad Major League Cats could become the newest bandwagon fan for hockey. I know I did some sacrificial, or I made some sacrifices of him to the hockey gods, which didn't turn out too well. One of them turned out. I sacrificed him so Boston could force a Game 7, which happened, but they didn't win the Stanley Cup. So the sacrifices were for nothing. The other time I sacrificed Major League Cats was for the Sharks to win the Western Conference, but didn't work out, which is fine, I guess. Whatever. We'll try it again next time. So hopefully Major League Cats can learn something about hockey in this off season, because whenever I kept talking about hockey, making my points, Major League has to be like, nope, you're wrong. And I've been watching hockey for a good 10 plus years now, and you just got into hockey because you went to your first hockey game this past season. Great. And you've kind of been admitted that, hockey isn't your thing. Now, when I talk about basketball, I admit, first of all, I don't know jack about basketball. It's not my thing. I still have PTSD from my playing career in second and third grade. Wasn't that great of a player. It's not my thing, which I get. But don't jump down hockey fans' throats who've been, part of the game for a long time to say that we're wrong when we know what we're talking about. It feels like whatever I say is just absolutely irrelevant, because no matter what I say, it's well, why should I even talk when Major League Cats is just going to be like, nope, you're wrong, I'm right, just because I think I'm right. Yeah, it's pretty kind of unfortunate. So yeah, hopefully Major League Cats can learn about hockey this offseason properly. So that'll be great. I'm running really long here, just talking about the season. Let's go into the hats here. Alright, I got my shoe boxes here. These are shoe boxes from the Container Store. These are about $10 back in 2018. These guys did a YouTube channel, Team Fitted TV. They did live podcasts about every night. And one of the guys from Pittsburgh had these shoe boxes that he used for hat storage. Excuse me. And got them at the Container Store, about $10. I highly recommend getting these for yourself as a hat collector if you have a lot of hats to store. These work well with the flat brim hats. You can always also store the curved brim hats, but I like to use these for my flat bill primarily. I have duffel bags for my other curved brim hats. I made a video about these back in January of 2019 about how great these are for storage, and just wanted to put my hockey hats away for the off season. This box, I have 3 of them. I have one box for hats that I don't often wear, like my Star Wars or my Lutheran hat or my Northwestern hat or other hats like that, Mountain Dew. And this box is for my non-Chicago sports off-season hats. So right now in June, the Broncos aren't playing, so I'm storing them away. So I'm going to go in reverse order here, putting my hockey hats away for the season. Buffalo Sabres. I got this as a snapback. Wanted the 5950 fitted one, but I'll get that some other time. When Liz was cool, they had a $10 hockey hat sale of the New Era hats, because New Era doesn't own the hockey hat license anymore. It's all Adidas now, just like with the jerseys. This is a Reebok, and Adidas has now taken over for apparel for hockey, and with Fanatics too. So unfortunately, I didn't take advantage of that sale, but I wanted to get more hockey hats in this offseason. Buffalo re-signed free agent Jeff Skinner, I think to 8 or 9 years for about $8 million each year. So hopefully they can become relevant again. Next hat, I had to get this hat. The Carolina Hurricanes, bunch of jerks. Don Cherry, who is a hockey broadcaster, commentator for the Canadian sports TV. Was a coach for the Boston Bruins back in the 70s and I think into the 80s. Got to the Stanley Cup a lot. I think maybe won it once, but kind of washed out. And now he wears very colorful suit coats for TV, and he's very old school hockey, and he called the Carolina Hurricanes after winning their home games. When they would do the storm surge, they just do like little silly antics and skits, like dunking, basketball dunking, like they did a duck duck goose thing, they did limbo. It was kind of fun. And he called them a bunch of jerks. Because, like, this isn't what grown men do in the National Hockey League. Come on! And, like, that's, like, a pretty dead-on accent. I might throw in the clip of him calling them jerks. But, Major League Cats, I know that you said, like, oh, I'm a bandwagon fan of the Carolina Hurricane. No. I mean, some of the former Blackhawks players, Scott Darling, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, and Anisimov are on the Hurricanes, support them. But this is a good hockey story. I enjoy a good hockey story. I'm sure with you as a big basketball fan, if the Charlotte Hornets, made a run like this. Actually, no. The Memphis Grizzlies made a run like this in the playoffs, where to the playoffs they had fun celebrating their victory. They really got into their fan base and really connected with their fans. I'm sure that you'd get a Memphis Grizzlies hat because it's a good basketball story and you're into basketball. I wouldn't judge. So that's why I had to get this hat. Also got this one at Macy's for $20. Pretty good deal. This guy, San Jose Sharks hat. This was my last Lids online purchase before the downfall, when they collapsed into Fanatics. Really cool hat. Had to get it. Very nice teal. I thought it'd be a darker teal, to be honest. But this is a really cool hat. It's a really good logo. San Jose Sharks. And they are not an original six team. And in their, 27 years of history of being in the league, they've only reached the Stanley Cup one time. They've only won the President's Trophy one time and lost in the first round to the Anaheim Ducks in, I believe, 6 games. Major League Cats, I know you're a San Jose Sharks fan, so if I'm wrong about that, then please correct me. But yeah, so, they can build off of their success now, but oh no, they might lose Pavelski, their big captain. They're for sure going to lose Erik Karlsson, so that was a waste, sorry. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Sharks come back and see how they can still be playoff relevant for another year or two. I think Couture made a really good impression in the playoffs, and I was really shaking my fist at him a lot. So that's a good thing for you guys. And of course, Vegas Golden Knights. I'm not a bandwagon fan of them. I'm a fan of them. I wasn't for November and December for personal reasons. One of my friends from Concordia, she was from Vegas, and just as we started dating, I'm like, hey, this new Vegas team is up and coming, so I became a fan of the Vegas Golden Knights, being supportive for her new hometown team, and that's why I'm a Vegas fan. And even since she had dumped me back in November, that's why I broke away from Vegas for a bit. I came back to Vegas because it's a fun team. It's a good team, and when they start to suck in about 2-3 years, when Fleury leaves and some of the older guys are done that made the core so good, then I'll still be with them. And at Major League Hats, I still want that 5950 hat that you saw at the Armory. This is only a 950 snapback. So that's why I'm a fan of Vegas. So I don't really have to explain anymore why I'm a Vegas fan. So let me move on to the Blackhawks quickly. I know I'm really dragging on here. Alright. So Bears hats. So yeah, the Blackhawks did pretty well this season. Towards the end, they were like just a few points away from making the playoffs, but Um, it just didn't happen. Whenever they would play a sub 500 team, they'd make a good run. But once they started playing like playoff contention teams, it's like, woohoo, woohoo. Do we really have to play defense? Like, oh my God, we can't do this all the time. And yeah, I know because of Brent Seabrook being crappy, we can't have nice things. I got this for $10. This wouldn't have been my first 5950 Blackhawks selection, but it was $10, so like why not? But the Blackhawks now have the third pick in the draft, which is really insanely good and awesome. But hopefully Stan Bowman doesn't trade it away for a nothing thing, like an old man prospect or an old man player. The alternative logo, there's a different on the red than it is on the black. Why that is, don't know, but the Tommy Cross C. Blackhawks had a pretty bad start to the season, and eventually they started to come back. Crawford had a lot of injuries again with his vertigo affecting him. Cam Ward, our big free agent signing last offseason, really panned out to be a complete crapshoot. So, way to go, Stan Bowman. Blackhawks, Patrick Kane had a really good season this year. He should have been in contention for the Hart Trophy, to be honest, but nope, had to put Sidney Crosby in. So F said the kid, because he's garbage. Well, I mean, he's a good player, but unless you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, then you hate Crosby because he's so good. But yeah, he shouldn't be considered for the Hart Trophy because Patrick Kane had way more goals, way more points than Crosby did. So, just because Crosby led his team to the playoffs, garbage. Sorry. So yeah, gonna be a pretty good season for them next year. I think they will be playoff bound again next year. And looking back, they are the team of the decade. They won 3 Stanley Cups within 5 years, especially in 2013 when they won the Stanley Cup after that lockout. Really rejuvenated the hockey league. Major League Hockey, do you remember that lockout that hockey had in 2013? 2012, 2013? Yeah, that was kind of a rough time, wasn't it? And it really helped to have a original six matchup between the Hawks and the Bruins. And Blackhawks became the team for America, America's team. So they are the team of the decade for hockey. And the next team would be the Pittsburgh Penguins, winning back-to-back championships in 16 and 17. And after that, I would consider Boston to be the third team of the decade. And then after that, the LA Kings. Yes, the LA Kings have 2 more Stanley Cups than the Bruins, but the LA Kings won one of their Stanley Cups when they were an 8 seed. It was just kind of a fluke that they won, and they only played the New Jersey Devils, who were a 6 seed at the time. So, yeah, it's going to be a pretty good year next year for hockey. So, this upcoming offseason, I'm getting more hockey hats. I'm going to get original 6 team hats, 5950 fitteds. It'll be hard to find the Toronto hats, to be honest. Those are the ones I want the most. I also want like original designed logos on the hats, but those won't be 5950s just because. I'm also going to try to get more jerseys in the off season, sweaters too, but these are jerseys because they're like a little see-through. They're more breathable than an actual sweater. But yeah, I'm gonna amp it up with hockey this off season. So thanks for watching this long video. Really appreciate it, especially for Major League Hats for sticking out to the end, and for me ridiculing him as a bandwagon fan. So, hope you enjoyed the video today. Tell me down below in the comment section how your hockey team did. If your team did well, if it just totally tanked. If you're the Florida Panthers and now you're going to have Joe Quenneville as your coach, congrats. Hopefully you guys can get a cup in the next 5 years, especially if the Breadman and Panarin and Bobrovsky comes to Florida. That'd be a pretty good matchup, or pretty good pairing with Quenneville. So, thank you for watching the video. Hats off to you as always. Like, subscribe, etc., etc. You know the drill. Bye, guys.